order the regular board meeting for April 16, 2018. The Board of Park Commissioners of the Lake Bluff Park District, Lake County, Illinois. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart.
Here.
Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
Commissioner McHenry.
Here.
Commissioner Mossbarger.
Here.
Commissioner Patera.
After prior notice.
Commissioner Wallace.
Here.
President Douglas.
Here. We have a motion to approve the agenda with one modification. But item B under new business. Where do we want to move that to?
So B would become A and A would become B.
Okay, within the new business category. We can,
So moved as modified.
Second.
roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mossbarger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace.
Yes.
President Douglas.
Yes. Okay, now is the time for a statement of visitors for anyone who would like to speak on non-agenda items. Go right ahead.
Thanks very much, Rob. My name is Dick Driver, and so I had lunch today with a friend of mine who's retired from managing golf courses, mostly private golf courses, so a very different kind of perspective. But he's been involved in any number of situations that we face. And he had really one overriding suggestion, which I thought was interesting, and then two specific ideas. And it basically said, you know, we need to appeal to not necessarily the current group of people that are playing golf, but the next group too. And I realized, you know, the clock is ticking, but still worth thinking about. And he said a big objection to golf now, a big hurdle for the younger group is the time involved. And so he's been involved in a couple of courses, and they came up with an idea of, you know, playing fewer holes. So they came up with a 3-hole ring and a 6-hole ring. And he said it attracted a lot of people, newer people wanted to try it and came out. So we could do the same thing with like Bluff and just have like a 2-hole ring or a 4-hole ring, because you can play 4 holes and then walk back pretty quickly, pretty easily. I just throw it out there as a suggestion to try to encourage the new people who are interested in playing and getting them out there. The other thing he talked about was how the newer groups are so interested in fitness. And again, you know, we've got a golf course and the fitness center there. And if there was some kind of a group package, again, you know, it attracts, you know, that's beneficial, that's cost effective. It attracts these newer players to come to the course. So anyway, I thought those were interesting ideas. I just throw them out, you know, for your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Any more statements? If not, we'll move on to the next item. Friends of the Lake Bluff Parks Foundation have a report for us.
Yeah, so I wanted to welcome and introduce John Hirsch. I know some of you know John, but John's been on the for a while and a long-time resident, and be our future president of the foundation as well after the summer. And he's just been a great addition and provided great knowledge and advice for our group. So John, I know, and this is something we wanted to do on a quarterly or / twice a year basis. So John, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Ron, and thanks for letting me talk about what the Friends are up to. I am John Hirsch. I am the vice chairman of the board right now. Jim Johnstone's the current president, and he's going to be moving. So I'm going to be taking over in the summer. A long-time Lake Bluff resident. I grew up here. I moved here in '77, and I moved back in 2005. I wanted to talk a couple minutes about the Friends of the Park. One of the big things that we've been trying to get off the ground is the 5K. We had last year. It was pretty successful. We were hoping it would grow this year. The weather was terrible, as most of you saw. So we actually postponed it. It's going in May. We're trying to get some momentum to get more people signed up. We actually got quite a few sponsorships this year. So that's one way that we're raising money for the Friends to fund projects that Park District can. So one of the couple projects that we're currently working on are the umbrellas, shade umbrellas for the swimming pool, and we're also working on a potential beach project with Cliff Miller to upgrade the entries to the top of the beach, and I think we're going to see some images on that. So that's something that we're working on a plan to fundraise for. We like to have actual ideas in place instead of just saying give it to the friends and then we don't have projects. So people buy into projects, they don't buy into thoughts. So that's the plan right now. Another thing that we're doing to fundraise is we're partnering with the parade committee for the 4th of July band concert down at the beach, and they're helping us to partner with them and giving the money, some of the money that's raised to the Friends of the Parks. So that's another big deal. We did have formerly we had the cold turkey golf tournament, but sign-ups last year were really poor, weather was terrible, and it ended up getting canceled. So we're looking at events. We don't have a huge amount of bandwidth. We're kind of a band of brothers and sisters. There's only a handful of us. But we're trying to do as much as we can to raise as much money as we can for projects that the Park District cannot fund. So one thing I did want to say that the Friends are open to is Jim Johnstone, our current board president, is a golfer, but most of the people on the board are not, or not actively golfing. We'd love to have someone from the golf community to join us, to help us. It certainly would help with the fundraising. I mean, if that is the intention to keep the golf course open, the Friends are certainly open to partnering with the community to do that. We don't have the bandwidth currently to spearhead that. I mean, the idea that we could raise, I mean, we're only raising like $15,000 to $20,000 a year for all the projects that we're doing. So the Friends is probably not the right organization to take that on themselves, but there's certainly an organization that's open to working with, kind of like the paddle community did. They worked with the Friends. The paddle community raised the money. The Friends were a place to park the money and to spend it through the Park District and to manage the funds as they were raised. And the Friends are open to doing that. And are open to ideas from the golf community to help fundraise. So I'm certainly willing to talk about it to anyone. And I just wanted to come and introduce myself, say hello, appreciate everyone's efforts, and if anyone needs to talk to me about anything, I am available. Ron has my contact information. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
How many are on the Friends right now?
How many are on the Friends? There's 7 of us.
There's 7.
The one just came off, one just resigned. So there's probably about 6. We've got some newer people and some people from the fitness community just joined, and we're kind of excited about that. A woman from a nonprofit industry who's used to fundraising also just joined. So we have kind of an eclectic mix, but we definitely could use more support. So if anyone is thinking about how can I serve the community, the Friends is a great organization to do that.
Sorry, we have 9 and 1 just came off. 8. More.
Have you chosen an event yet? Or?
So we're still doing the 5K, and that's going to be on the day before Mother's Day. I believe we had close to 50 people signed up to run. We got like 6 sponsorships, something like that.
That's great.
From local businesses to support the event. So, we're doing what we can but certainly we could do a better job of publicizing our organization, what we're raising the money for, and how we do it. The 4th of July parade is another, we've in the past we've done the Criterium, and we did the cold turkey. We raised money for the beach steps. That was a really successful project. But people need to have those projects in mind before they start saying, well, I'm going to give to the Friends. One of the things that we are attempting to do when people sign up for their pool memberships is to have the pool people, families who sign up give a little bit of extra. They have the option to give a little bit of extra to fund the umbrella project, the shade, because that's it's been a common refrain among any of the families that use the pools, not enough shade on the pool. So this is one of the ways that we're trying to get the people that use the service to help fundraise towards it.
Have you talked to Rich Martin by chance?
I have not.
Because he has probably a ton of contacts and emails from the pumpkin chase.
Yeah, he's actually part of our staff group, so he actually is part of.
We also are cognizant of not trying to
Oh, good.
like double dip. So we're trying to make sure that we don't want to take funds away from people who would donate to the pumpkin chase and try to get them to fund our race. So we've been
Well, I
trying
mean,
to.
I'm just talking about running the race.
Oh, we have a lot, I mean, we've contacted Lake Forest Lake Bluff Running Club, we've contacted a number of organizations, a lot of the fitness groups have. I think the weather's been terrible, and people, last year we had a huge walk-up group that came, and, it was 30 degrees out and sleeting the day that the race was supposed to be running, so we ended up canceling it and moving it back to May, so we're hopeful that the weather's going to be good.
And we meet with Rich every other week.
Oh, good. What is the new date of the race?
It's the day before Mother's Day,
May
May
12th.
12th.
May.
Yeah. It's in the morning, 7 o'clock, I believe, is when these runners start showing up. It's right here at the golf course,
Awesome.
called Run the Course. Any other questions? No? Thank you,
John.
Thanks. Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item. Approval of meeting minutes from March 19th, regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
That was quick.
And I would just like to say to Marcia, thank you so much. These meetings are very complex and there's a lot of stuff going on. The minutes have been great as far as summarizing what goes on at the meeting, so thank you.
All right, ditto. Okay, Marcia. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner McKendry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace?
Yes.
President Douglas?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, the consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept the March 19th, April 2nd, and April 16th, 2018 payables?
So move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner McKendry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace?
Yes.
President Douglas?
Yes. Now we have a motion to approve the March 19th, April 2nd, and April 16th, 2018 payables. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner McKendry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace?
Yes.
President Douglas?
Yes. Okay, moving on. Item 4, finance. Purchase cards ratification.
The P card, actually, I was going to discuss the pool cash and information. I apologize.
So basically, we're right in line with our expenses, so we just had parks expenses for ground supplies and licensing expenses, but we're...
Ron, I can actually discuss the
Yeah,
variances,
keep
but
going.
as far as the P card,
Yeah.
I just wasn't, I don't see the report here. I wasn't prepared for the P card.
No, not a problem.
But as far as the variances, I can go into that. For the pool cash, the net operating cash is $886,760.
Well, hold on a minute. Cheryl's new, so this is the first time, so I apologize. So we'll go into pool cash under the
next item.
under the next one. So basically, you have it in front of you, and we were slightly over. That's due to some of the parks, the ground supplies related to the parks. So.
Have you started purchasing for camp and pool yet?
Some pool supplies, but not camp.
Okay.
We don't get into camp really until the end of April, first part of May.
some of the parks crews, they were able to get out a little bit earlier than anticipated, so they were able to get out different things.
So therefore, just some of the sod, here in the park, kind of back towards them.
Nothing unusual.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions? No? Could I have a motion to ratify the purchase card payment of $34,235.32?
So moved.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace,
Yes.
President Douglas.
Yes. Next item, 2018 March and year-to-date financials.
Sure.
Okay. Pool cash, net operating cash is $886,760 compared to last year's $1,326,012. The district will begin receiving tax receipts in May, possibly with an additional distribution early in the month due to property tax prepayments made by taxpayers in December and January. 1.4 million was received in June of last year. So the tax receipts will be assisting with the cash position that we have. As far as now, forgive me, can I go into the explanation of the variances of the financials?
Sure.
Okay.
Hold on one second. So the cash, your $1.3 million number was the cash at March 31st of last year?
Yes.
So why year over year would there be 600,000 less? Because the tax receipts wouldn't come into play if we're comparing March to March.
No, but part of that impact is the performance from last year's. The impact of the loss does affect our overall fund balance, which ultimately is kind of tied to the cash position. So that part.
Agreed, that's part of it.
Yeah, that is part of it. There is timing of expenses.
Well, didn't we still have capital too, this time last year? I don't think we were done.
Like
with
referendum.
Yeah, I don't think we were done
We
with,
had the playground.
yeah, so that stuff was still
I'm just
kind
curious,
of,
it's a big number, I think we should.
that stuff was still filtering through. We had the funds
Yeah.
set aside, but they were released to pay for
Playground,
it. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And that's what it
that's
does,
probably-
you're adjusting for referendum in golf, so that's part of
Where does it say that?
that. As of March 31st, on page, 85, is it? Yeah, 85. As of March 31st, first paragraph, last sentence, the total liabilities, equities, and surplus pool cash adjusting for referendum. Golf balances.
It's a little over 400 million.
Right.
Yeah. Sounds a little bit better.
We'll clarify that.
It's a big enough number, I think we should just be clear on what it is.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. The information year-to-date through March of 2018. Overall, our performance is better than budget by about 68,000. These reports that you see, it fluctuates 66, 67, 68. It's all rounding, but basically it's about 68,000, primarily related to recreation funds contributions. Health and fitness centers revenues and membership is 12,000 higher. And contractual expenses in printing and publishing is less than planned by 10,000. Also contributing to the better than budget of 68,000 is lower personnel services costs in the racket sports area, in addition to less equipment purchases than planned of about 18,000 total together. However, the equipment expenditures are still anticipated to be incurred in the coming months. 17,000 of personnel services and administration is better than planned, but that is by the end of the year anticipated to even out. And then the golf club expenditures are better than planned by about 11,000. Revenues are better than planned by 5,000. Golf memberships through April 16, 2018 in comparison between years. 2017 up through April 16 or 2017 is about 114,000. This same time this year, or same time this year as compared to last year, is about 102,000. We are about 66% of 2018's budget. Budget is about 155,000.
That's memberships, right?
Yes.
Those are memberships, okay.
We'll have a much better idea by the May board meeting, as to how memberships stand. It'll be reported more at that time.
We see a little bit more balancing out of some receipts and whatnot in May too, so that even gets us a little bit closer
Yeah.
to, I mean, each month that goes along, it probably, a certain portion that catches up every month where we have some variables and
Right.
some, okay.
But year to date, we are better than planned.
That's good.
Okay, any other questions, anyone?
No.
Let's see here, I gotta find I lost my spot in the report here. So I guess, do we just need an approval for the finance report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
And then a roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner McKendry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace?
Yes.
President Douglas?
Yes. Okay, next item is old business, participation in membership quarterly report.
You want me to just hit some highlights?
Just
So, I'll go in order here, just give you a little comparison because there's curves between our Kid Zone as well as enrichments. You see that we're down significantly with Kid Zone, but we were up significantly with enrichments. A lot of times this will happen with that age group. We'd rather have them in a classroom than in Kid Zone, so that's a good thing that we're moving some of those kids from a daycare setting to an actual classroom setting. So that's just to show you so far the first quarter we're ahead in enrichments. Right now you can see our youth athletics. This has been over the last year and a half been a major focus of my staff to try to promote youth athletics, and we continue to grow. I actually was reviewing some financials going into the summer, and we're running ahead in our independent contractor programs that are our 5-star programs, as well as our gymnastics program still continues to grow. We actually added a staff member this year, so that way we can take people off the wait list and actually serve them. So that's been a big focus of ours too. We have people on the wait list, how do we get them off it and provide them a program? Good problem to have. Our dance program is just slightly less than last year. I kind of say it's really about even. We're running 6 kids behind on the variance of all the classes. Then before and after school care program, this year we really grew on our early bird program. We only had 2 kids that would be dropped off in the morning, and we're averaging 7 to 8 kids in the morning. So that continues to grow. And then finally, special events, we've only had 1. We had our daddy-daughter dance, definitely extremely successful. We managed to fit 114 people, and or 114 couples, and 103, 206 last year. So you got to double it.
Huge
So,
success.
big success.
My daughter was there, not with her dad. I had to rent a dad for the night.
But she was cute.
Yeah, she was there, she had fun.
So we look forward to the summer. We're tracking really well right now. So far with pool memberships, it's still early, but we finished our early bird registration today, and we're running about 39 total passes ahead of last year. With non-residents and residents, we're about $9,000 ahead of last year in comparison.
Great.
Great. Any questions?
Well, great job on the numbers.
Yes.
These programs are just continuing to grow, so well done, Jim. done a great job, you and the team. Any other comments or anything? I don't know if this needs any sort of, no, we can just move right on, it's just more informational at this point. So, thank you, Jim, on that, and we'll move on to the next items, which are new business and Sunrise Park and Beach preliminary engineering proposals.
So this will be a tag team effort between George, Commissioners Earhart, McHenry, and I, and so I'll just back up here. So back in 2013, we had for some of the advisory committee that proposed this plan over here is a master plan with all the breakwaters, some new breakwaters. And then in 2015, Member Russell and I became members of a sand management group through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Coastal Management Group, and really started to think about erosion, a lot of conversations of high lake levels, and so that was in 2015. 2016, the committee agreed to send out an RFP to look at various options. We call them short-term, long-term options, even though we didn't have any funding for it. So we had Shabika come in to consulting who we've used in the past to go through some options without really any costs. And then we brought in Baird as well. Baird is out of Madison, Wisconsin, to take a look at our RFP as well. And so Baird gave some initial numbers. We said, let's go back to the drawing board. What we agreed, the committee and I agreed, is to not focus on short-term strategies, but focus on what we have today. So not necessarily look at the master plan, but look at our current breakwaters as they are today. And so we sent out a third RFP. And in the meantime of that, we met with another firm called AECOM who worked on the city of Lake Forest Beach. And so we decided to get a total of 3 proposals. And you're going through some of the slides that you can see on Saturday, just significant damage. If you remember a few years back, we had some damage and we had to replace a breakwater. I'm going to pull this over here, George. Sorry. So where we had some damage here that we had to put in some armor stone. So we received some insurance money and to replace the damaged breakwater steel wall groin. So we're at a point where we received proposals tonight, and obviously we're experiencing some issues. We continue to experience some erosion issues there. And as George wants to go through the proposal, he'll go through the details, and then Commissioner McHenry and Earhart will go through actually the importance of this.
Just real quickly, those images I just saw there, I haven't been down to the beach in about a week, but was that last weekend?
That was just on Saturday night.
It was
Saturday,
exposed all
Friday
those
night and
things
Saturday.
there.
Yep,
So that wave action was coming way up on the shore.
it was. It was.
I went down Sunday, it was to the base of the South Beach. It's to the base of the bluff the waves were coming.
Was that the foot of the hill or the slope? Okay.
So as we said, we have 3 proposals, and George will go through those proposals and what they would actually, what the preliminary engineering study consists of. Or do you want me to bring this over here?
It doesn't matter, you can move there. So for those of you in the audience that don't know me, my name is George Russell. 2 years ago, the Park District decided to expand their committee structure to include a citizen volunteer to work with each of the 2 board members that are on each of their primary committees. And I applied and was accepted as part of the Park and Beach Committee. So I'm not a board member, but I am a member of the Beach Committee and have been for about 2 years. Last week, when the committee met to finalize our recommendation on this proposal before us tonight, we were breaking up, and Corey commented that, gee, I wish there was a way that we could really emphasize to the board how important it is that we move forward with this study. So I think she's the one that conjured up the harbor weather this weekend. So blame her. All you golfers, blame Corey. Okay. So this picture that I'm passing around is a picture from, and there's one that's circulating in the audience. It's a picture that was taken in 1986 when the lake level reached its all-time high in the last 120 years since we've been recording lake level measurements. It was before the Park District really had any substantial erosion control improvements at the beach. As you can see from that view of South Beach, there really wasn't a beach at all. So it does speak to the importance of understanding just how important it is that we look to protect our beach. The sand on our beach is the most important component of the beach. Without it, we don't have a beach. Just a little review of lake levels. Since records have been kept in 1880, Lake Michigan levels have fluctuated over a total range of 6 feet. So that's the difference that we've seen since man has been reporting differences in Lake Michigan level, 6 feet total. For a period of 16 years, from 1999 to 2015, the Lake Bluff Park District and all the beach owners along all of Lake Michigan and Lake Huron enjoyed the benefit of having Lake Michigan water levels which remained below the long-term average. So for 16 years, probably for most of us, that's our extent of our familiarity with the Lake Bluff Beach, the water levels were below average. It was one of the most extended long-term periods that water levels did remain below average. Unfortunately, in 2016, the lake levels began to rise, and they're now at a point where they're just 1.5 feet below the historical high. The experts have absolutely no idea why lake levels fluctuate. They understand where some of the water comes from that gets into the lake. They understand where some of it goes, but they still cannot accurately predict what is going to happen with the lake level. If you click on the Corps of Engineers site when you go home tonight, even for this summer, they can't predict with any degree of certainty whether the lake level is going to be higher than last year or lower than last year. They're predicting that it's going to remain about the same, but they just don't know for sure. One of the major features that impacts sand on the Lake Bluff Beach, and one of the things that scientists have come to understand with the currents that are in the lake, is that sand is naturally carried along the lake from north to south. So bluffs that are eroding up north, sand moves south, and historically it had always been deposited along the beaches to the south, and the shore to the south. Unfortunately for Lake Bluff, way back at the turn of the last century, 1910, the Great Lakes Naval Harbor was constructed with structures that extend 1,100 feet out into the lake. And the Waukegan Harbor improvements that exist today were built around that same time frame. This interrupted the flow of sand that moves down along the lake. And so for the past 100 years, less sand than whatever used to be transported to Lake Bluff is moving down the lake. It's being kicked out into the lake, away from the Lake Bluff shoreline, and exacerbating the conditions here. The village has historical records indicating that some portions of the bluff within the village's jurisdiction have receded by 100 feet in 100 years. So it's nearly a foot a year. So the combination of the lack of sand moving in the water near Lake Bluff and now the ever-increasing high water levels is a two-punch scenario that's very, very difficult to deal with. So the Park and Beach Committee is before the board today, and let me emphasize, we were coming before the board today, before the storm, before the storm on Saturday. We are coming before the board today asking that you approve a preliminary engineering study in the amount of $66,800 to hire the professional engineering consulting firm AECOM of Chicago, Illinois, to evaluate and develop the technical aspects of beach protection and enhancement options for the Park District Sunrise Beach. We want to emphasize this point. The study's focus is the analysis and development of technical options to protect and enhance our beach. The Park and Beach Committee has emphasized with each of the 3 coastal consulting firms that we have met with over the past 2 years that the plan developed must be economical and practical and should, to the extent possible, reuse existing steel groins and stone breakwaters, while at the same time considering the proposed beach and water-based elements of the recently approved Sunrise Park and Beach long-term master plan. With or without the recent high water levels of the past 3 years, the performance of the study is the logical first step towards implementation of the beach protection and enhancement components of the Park District's long-term master plan. Certainly, high water levels of the last 3 years have raised the level of urgency. So the study will include existing data collection and field evaluation of all existing structures and conditions. There will be a bathymetric survey performed where the consultant is going to take cross sections that start at the south end of the beach, at the toe of the bluff, and extend out 2,000 feet into the lake. There'll be survey points all along that line extending out into the lake to understand the depth of the sand cover and then the depth from water level down to the lake bed. Every 100 feet along the length of the Lake Bluff Beach, they'll perform that same analysis and data collection. They will then prepare a base map incorporating the previously developed survey prepared by Bleck Engineering. If those of you that were on the board when the master plan was developed, there was a fairly comprehensive survey done of all the land-based portions of Sunrise Park. And the recommended consultant, AECOM, felt that they could use that information and incorporate it into their new water-based survey data and not resurvey the entire bluff. One of the other consultants that we interviewed actually was still recommending that in despite of that survey that they do a drone survey of the entire bluff to essentially collect that same data. Once they collect all this data, there'll be a study of historical storms and other reports on sand drifting in the vicinity of Lake Bluff. They will then develop beach protection and enhancement alternatives along with a cost for each. There will then be a series of meetings with the Park District, and a selected preferred alternative will be chosen. Once we choose an alternative, final refinement of cost will be developed for the preferred alternative. The study will include a look at the idea of a proposed isolated breakwater that was included in the master plan. For those of you involved in the plan, if you remember, and as I have learned since coming on board, the master plan envisioned the removal of the one existing groin that exists in the middle of our North Beach, in the 2 primary swimming areas, and the construction of a larger breakwater further out into the lake. Now, while this is more aesthetically pleasing than the retention of the steel groin, anytime you move further out into the lake, the water depths normally increase, and the volume of rock increases exponentially. So they're going to take a look at that. From what we heard from 2 of the 3 consultants, this could be problematic in terms of cost. And obviously costs are very important. They're also going to take a very, very preliminary look at the concept of the proposed fishing pier and lookout that was part of the plan, but only a cursory look. Obviously, compared to the problem of protecting our beaches, this is a very, very secondary component, but they want to make sure that if we implement this in the future, the long distance future, that it's not going to harm our beaches. So, once again, over the past, of course, 15 months, we had 5 meetings with 3 different coastal engineering firms that do the majority of this type of coastal work along the Great Lakes. Shabika and Associates, who is the longtime serving firm for the Park District, we interviewed them first. They had a proposal amount of $56,000. AECOM out of Chicago was interviewed. They developed a proposal with an amount of $66,800. And then a final firm, Baird, out of Madison, was interviewed. And they submitted a cost proposal of $97,800 to do this work. The committee is actually recommending that the firm of AECOM with the second lowest cost proposal of $66,800 be selected. We feel that the technical qualifications of AECOM and Baird far exceed the level of technical expertise of the smaller North Shore firm, Shabika and Associates. Shabika and Associates just simply does not have the trained personnel on staff to really give us the right type of evaluation that we think we need here, which is a proper and good technical evaluation to develop components to protect our beach. Shabika also, if you've had time to look at the 3 proposals, they actually just submitted a 1-page proposal and attached a study that was written about 15 years ago of the entire North Shore. The other 2 firms, I think, really did a nice job with the preliminary evaluation, went through each of our beach cells and noted the existing deficiencies, and just seemed to be much more on the mark. AECOM, the project manager that they're proposing to use, lives right on the North Shore. He's a local guy. When Ron and I met with him, I think he really is the right fit for Lake Bluff. He's got the technical expertise, but he also understands that we cannot have a project that is going to cost tens of millions of dollars. I had some familiarity with this particular individual 15 years ago when I was working as a village engineer. Bill Weaver is the guy's name. He was working for a different engineering firm at the time, and he put together a very, very cost-effective $25,000 review of the 3.5 miles of ravine stream bed in Lake Bluff. Lake Bluff was able to use that report, and we had it in hand, and several years later we were able to get an $800,000 grant for the Ravine Park Ravine. So it highlights the importance of having good studies in your files when you go to pursue grants. So in summary, the completion of the study will put the Park District in a position of understanding what it's going to cost to implement the beach protection and enhancement components of the long-range plan. We need to have this level of cost information available because it is an important major component of the Park District's overall capital needs evaluation. We need to have this level of information available should any relevant grant opportunities arise. It is always better to have some sort of preliminary technical study in hand when you're pursuing these type of grants. It shows that the community has already been working on the problem. The Park District is currently pursuing with several state agencies and several other park districts on the idea on the North Shore, the idea of reutilizing dredged sand from locations to the north where excess sand accumulation is a problem. If we have been able to implement some of the recommendations that will be developed from this report, and we can take advantage of these reduced sand costs, there is a far better chance that the sand is going to stay within our new beach cells than the problems we see today with these storms. And in short, the Park District will be in a much better position of understanding the needs of our beach and how it may or may not be impacted if the currently proposed North Shore Water Reclamation District project at our beach doesn't move forward. With that, I'll turn it over to my two fellow committee members. Or any questions?
You want to ask questions? Do you want to have questions first?
I'm going to steal Francis' water, don't I?
That's not for your money. Sorry. I just feel like we've been talking about this since 2008, and we've been kicking this down the road for many, many years. And I think we're at a time where we need to start proactively working on this beach. I feel like we've been waiting for NSSD to do something, and they are waiting for us. And it's my opinion to start working on this now.
Is there an update from them, Ron?
No, it's part of that recreational open space institutional zoning that's kind of tied into this as well. So once we can get that zoning for all of our properties, that will allow us to work with the village through all the different processes and the time frames and things like that. So it's all kind of tied together.
What have you talked to the sanitary district?
It's been
directly.
It's been a good year and a half.
But isn't the village taking the lead position on that whole process with the reclamation people?
Yes, but the three of us meet together. So the last time we met, we just talked about the project where they want to install the 1 million-gallon tank underneath the current yacht club. So that's the last time.
Yeah, just to follow up on that comment, in my own personal view, I think the Park District is going to be in a much, much better position of dealing with the North Shore Water Reclamation District if that storage tank project moves forward. If we've done the study and if we have a consultant that we're working with that understands our beach to the extent that anyone will at that time. You know, they'll have done the surveys, they'll understand the water depths, they'll understand the impact of that proposed tank project. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but for about 10 years, North Shore used to be known as the Sanitary District. Now they're the North Shore Water Reclamation District. They operate the big sewage pumping station at the lakefront. As they did for Lake Forest about 15 years ago, they're proposing to construct a 1 million gallon tank underneath the yacht club, Lake Bluff Yacht Club location that would serve as an emergency overflow tank in the event that they would ever have operational problems at that station, or if the big force main that runs all the way through town, pumping that sewage out of town if it would ever break. The facility was built in 1971. It's approaching 50 years old, and just common logic will tell you that they're going to start having problems with it. So it is an important environmental protection project for the lake, and at some point the Park District and the Village and North Shore are going to need to move that project forward.
Just a question, did you say when the last study was done with this other, what was the last time a study like this was done?
Well, there was a master plan that was done by the Park District, I believe, in 2014? Is that right?
2013.
2013, but the project didn't include any real technical analysis of the protection of the beach itself. It was more focusing on the different components of the overall Sunrise Park and Beach, you know, which beach cells the Park District would like to pertain, you know, the development, the idea of the lookout and the fishing pier, this individual breakwater.
Landscape
Before,
architectural firm.
what's that?
A landscape architectural
Who's
firm.
landscape?
With Shabika, with Shabika.
And Shabika was involved. Before that time, in 1987, just as my wife and I moved to the village, the Park District engaged the services of Shabika. And they actually at that time put together a plan to enhance the Sunrise Beach, which if you've all seen that picture, it was a year after the last record lake level, and there really wasn't any beach to use. The project went to referendum and the community voted it down. I don't know why, but they did.
How did they fix the lake after 1985 and 86?
Well, there were subsequent projects where there were two different bluff restoration projects, one at the far north end of the beach and one at the south. Shabika and Associates was hired to do a project at the south end, and they created did the design for the breakwaters that are now in place at the south. Beach, and then sometime in the early 1990s, although this doesn't show it, the minimal breakwater improvements that are at the North Beach, opposite the North Shelter extending out, there's a breakwater that runs parallel with the shelter that was also done with Shabika. They were smaller individual projects. And then there was a big failure opposite Mountain Road, north of the Dog Beach, where that bluff was very horribly eroded, similar to the photograph that's been passed around. And the Corps of Engineers actually worked with the Park District to have that study done. I think the Corps actually did the design of the breakwater to protect the toe. So,
did they do a
really,
study, or they just corrected the problem?
Oh, to what extent, they wouldn't have evaluated the entire beach. I mean,
But it's corrected now. I mean, the beach is like a beach now. So what did they do? What was the process then?
Well, the main reason there's been a beach for the last 20 years is the lake levels have gone down. We enjoyed 16 years of low lake levels.
But they added all that too, though. They did some work, you said.
And the Corps did work at the north end, but that was a Park District project in approximately 1991-92 for the creation of the South Beach. By that time, water levels had started to recede, but the lake, I don't know if we can freeze that, but that entire bluff at the south end of the South Beach, that was all cut back. That cliff, that vertical cliff you see in that photograph, the top end of the bluff was shaved off and the toe was extended out, and all that breakwater rock that is in that picture there, that's all part of a project that was done in like 1991, 1992. But we've had a beach there for 16, 17 years now because the lake level has been down. Some of the experts were fearing that we were taking too much water out of the lake and mankind was reducing the lake level, so it came as sort of a shock to everyone that 3 years ago the lake repeated its historical performance of starting to come up with no real known reasons of why it's doing it.
George, you mentioned that the expectation is the proposal will be economical and we could actually implement something.
But
did the RFP define a target?
No, we
limit on what we can afford?
No, we did not try to set the number for them. They're going to give us a range of alternatives with varying costs for each of the elements.
But
But
how will they know what's economical to us?
Well, the primary focus is to develop different alternatives that will protect the beach. So we don't know at this point what those minimum numbers are. So it would be very difficult for us to give them a target number to work with, because we're going to force.
What can we afford, $1 million or $5 million?
Well, any number, it's going to be a $1 million project plus certainly, and the communities probably have to going to go back to a referendum.
But if
I mean,
we're going to spend $66,000 on a proposal, are we going to get something back that we can implement?
We're going to get the known cost estimates for elements that will protect and enhance our beaches.
The thing I'm hearing on this report, or what these engineers are going to do is, much like how you do a topographical map of land, they're doing the subterranean surface, going how far out?
2,000 feet out in the lake.
3,000 feet? 2,000 feet? Well, and they'll really get the whole terrain of the floor of the lake off our beaches, and that way they can really then understand how the wave action is forming as it comes into the beach, and hence then you create defensive tactics. But they can't really do that until you really know what's out there. So at least that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, that's correct. That's my understanding also, that literally by knowing the depth, wave height is affected by the depth of water as it approaches the beach, and there's different degrees of erosion throughout Lake Michigan.
Obviously, to do any serious work, you would need a proposal like this. You would need a study.
This is the first. This is
Right.
yeah. This isn't the final design. Understand? This is simply a first technical study at developing alternatives to protect the beach.
But I think the gentleman's point is perhaps that unless you have an idea of a range of the alternatives that might come up, we may be making a study that the board is not prepared to finance any of those ranges at this point. And I would think with the changes in the lakes, so sometimes extreme, that to do a study and let it sit for 2 or 3 years and not do anything with it, you might need another study because of the variances. That's all. I'm just saying, if the board knows that they can run a referendum or raise the money or take out another loan, I would think that would be help you understand if it's worthwhile to invest in this study now as opposed to a year from now or 2 years from now.
Could I interrupt for a second? This is a presentation to the board, and this should be for the board to be receiving the information we'll discuss, and then we can maybe bring it to the audience. But let's finish the presentation to the board here first.
So George, this would be, the remedies would be to protect the sand that we bring in, because this will not bring any, and I learned this word, what is it, littoral sand? So I learned my new word for the day.
Oh, wow.
If the cells are constructed, if the recommendation is to develop these typical configuration horseshoe-shaped cells, very similar to what we have at the South Beach now, except we only have the arm at the north end of the South Beach.
But the goal is not to...
It would allow, it will help sand during non-storm periods.
Okay.
There's still some sand in the water. The
So
water literally comes into
we would get some replenishment.
and we would get more, there would be more natural replenishment, and then because of the breakwaters at the right height, it should stop the sand from being pulled back, to the degree that it is now.
Because right now, basically, just a reminder, we're basically spending $15,000 to $20,000 a year throwing sand on the beach for 3 months so everyone can run in the sand so that we can watch it wash out, and then spend $20,000 again this year on it.
Correct.
So that's the cycle we're in right now. And if the lake water rises another 1.5 feet to its historical high, we got even bigger problems than putting $20,000 of sand down. So.
Well, it's true. And one of the things, what you mentioned actually, we were talking about in our meeting, we're like, gosh, if we come to the board and we ask you for this money and then we can't move forward to do it and to take care of the beach, does this study, was it a waste of our money? Because we can't do it for 3 or 4 years and then we have to start over with the study. Then we thought about it, and after the surveys came out, and if you ask, you know, Lake Bluff, what is the #1 true gem? It is the beach. And if we don't start here, if there's 10 phases, we can't go anywhere without this first phase. We will never know the cost unless we do this. And we will never know what we can afford. And maybe it's $3 million, and then we start off and we say, listen, we only can do the first phase of $1 million. Maybe we learn that we need to go to referendum for this. And I really do think that's where we'll end up. But it's obvious our beach needs major care, and we need to protect it. That's the first thing I learned being on the park board. I thought the beach was the whole entire community, the village's responsibility. I was actually surprised that the little money we get has to protect the beach, which is a huge responsibility. This is what actually brought me to Lake Bluff. I mean, I lived in Waukegan and I stared at Johns Manville for 18 years of my life. I wanted a beach I could walk to and enjoy. And if you read, I don't know if any of you read in the paper yesterday in the Daily North Shore, but they're talking about Langdon, I think it's called Langdon Beach in Wilmette, and they're considering closing it this year because of erosion issues, and they don't think they'll be able to keep it open. And as long as I'm on the park board and a part of it, I want, if somebody says, what was your legacy? I'd like to say I work towards protecting our beach, because wouldn't it be a shame if we had to announce in 5 or 10 years that we had to close our beach because we don't have any sand and now it's dangerous for kids to go down there and there's no beach. So yeah, it's a ton of money. And
well,
we don't have a choice.
I don't think we know what money it is, and this gets into this whole thing, and we have these discussions on these consulting projects. I read all this stuff. It's a couple 100 pages, so I read it all. But I don't have any idea, George, whether it's going to be 250,000 or 2 million or 10 million.
We don't.
I understand, and that's my point. We got to have some idea of what options might be. Otherwise, we're just sitting here going, God, I think we should protect our beach, but I don't know what it's going to cost, and I don't know what that means.
Because then this is only one data point, many cost data points that the park board needs to consider.
And this was not, just so we are all at the board again, the 6.5 million, the 7.6 million of capital, less the $1.1 million for the golf permanent clubhouse, the 6.5 million does not include anything for this beach. Okay? Just so we're clear. So we've got 6.5 million of stuff outside of whatever this comes up with.
Over the next 12 years.
Yes.
So in 2 or 3 years, when our beach is worst shape and dirtier than it is today, and they come to us and say, what have you been doing to protect the beach? And we say, well, we didn't go forward with it because of $67,000. We're going to let our beach rot and get worse because of $67,000. That's what it is. This is our responsibility. It's dirty, it's unkept, it's unloved, it needs help, it needs repair. We don't have a choice. This is like saying you're not going to repair your plumbing in your house, but you're going to put in a fancy new pool in the backyard. It's ridiculous. We have to repair this. We have to work on this. We have to find the money for it. We have to probably go to the community. I don't want my taxes to go up, but if you ask me, would you pay more to protect the beach? Absolutely. This is what draws people to Lake Bluff.
Well, and
it's in our name.
One key thing under the community survey that we did just recently, the one we had in 2009, the beach was the #1 asset as far as the public is concerned. And secondly, it is a unique asset that most communities don't have anything like this. So we have a unique situation here, no question. And I totally get the need for a report like this, just because you can't even develop a budget for a breakwater unless you know from a sectional cut what the depth is in which you're placing this barrier. And also having an engineer who specializes in this to really understand wave action. Because it's during these big storms we have these problems. And I wasn't here this weekend, but I know that when we get those northeast winds where the
It was a 100-year storm, just so you know. Same as last year's 100-year storm.
Well, but I know when we get these northeast winds, they run down the full length of the lake. That's when that October of 15, was it? Or
31st.
It was Halloween.
Yeah, that's, we had these colossal waves, but they're running the full length of the lake, and we are so exposed on the southern portion of the north half. So I have no trouble with doing this report, so we can then truly develop strategies. And with strategies, then budgets, and then we can maybe figure out how to phase it. Whatever, we can break it down into maybe manageable bites, but we don't know what it is until we can really assess what we have and what its condition is under that surface of that water. The crazy thing is that our sand, we dump sand on that beach, it gets washed out. It just starts piling up 50 yards offshore. It's sitting out there. Illinois EPA won't let us bring it back. So it sits there. It's changing the wave action by pulling farther out. Because as a wave comes in, as it hits the shore or the bottom of the lake, it rises up as it drags, as it starts feeling the floor of the lake, and that's when the wave comes up. And hence, they're coming in differently now because of all the sand that's sitting out there was on the beach. It's a real dynamic thing, and it's evolving and changing all the time, but we've got to get a benchmark.
Well, and then George, you could probably speak to this better than I can, but when Shabika gave their presentation, they showed the last 100 years, and then they showed the trend when the water started to rise, and they said, the trend we're in right now for the last few years, it will get worse before it gets better. George, wasn't it like a 10-year, it goes on, I mean, we're just in the beginning of this. It's not going to get better for several years.
Yeah, well, there's no certainty to that.
Well, if we look at the last 100 years.
If you just look at the plotted record for 100 years back, yes, typically on average, it's not a dramatic up and then a dramatic back down below. I mean, the rough number is about 10 years, but in actuality, before our 15-year period from 1986 to 1999, when the lake levels, I'm sorry, 1999 to 2015, when lake levels stayed below the long-term average. Actually, in the period before that, 32 years, from 1968 to 1999, so for a 32-year period, the lake levels stayed at or above average, with the exception of 1 2-year period when it dropped to 1 foot below average. So it could actually be worse than the 10 years. We could be entering another 30-year cycle.
Or it could be better, but the question for this board is, do we want to take that chance and sit here and go, gosh, I hope it goes down so that our beach stays, or do we want to be proactive and say, you know what, we have to plan for the worst case, which is potentially it could get worse, and we better know what we're talking about here, because there'll be a point where it's going to be too late to do anything. So Corey, as much as I hate spending money, and you know me.
I know.
That's why you got to sit next to Bob.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we have another choice right now, guys. I'm with you. I think we have to do it and find out what we got.
The committee's done a great job. We have to assume it's going to be higher than average lake levels going forward for such an important asset. I mean, probably our top. So I'm in agreement and going ahead with this. We need a starting point. Right. Whether we're able to identify the funds through this or that for in a year from now, in 6 months from now, whatever. It will give us a starting point for grants and stuff. I mean, I don't know where that would potentially come into play as one issue, but so I'm in support.
And where would these funds, we could draw these from?
It'd come right out of the capital.
Gonna come out of the reserve.
Slash
Gotta
master
come out of the main
capital
reserve,
fund.
because we don't have an operations. We got barely break-even
So out of
budget.
that million plus that we have in reserves, come out of that.
Because honestly, even though this image is a little hard to read, I know this photograph, and to start seeing our lakefront bluff collapsing like it did in the 80s, it's a pretty horrifying image. I'm in support of this because I feel we got to get this a baseline to start from, so then we can start developing our strategies. And it has to be designed for, I guess we have to talk to the engineer, they design at what lake level. I mean, we should take.
Well, that's going to be part of their cost menu. You know, as the study moves forward, we'll need to decide if the lake levels come up to the 86 all-time high. As you can see from the photographs, the portion of the South Beach, south of the South Shelter, the beach would be underwater. They can design a beach that would raise the entire level, but that's a lot more sand to haul in, and it's a lot more cost. So that's part of the decisions that we'll make as the study moves forward. What type of protection level we want to have, and at what cost.
So this will be kind of an incremental thing where they'll give us a menu. Is that what we're going to ask them for? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
George's AECOM, is that the right name?
AECOM?
AECOM?
AECOM. Don't ask me the history of that name, I don't know.
So would they potentially be a firm that we would use to do the work down the road?
They could
do that as well?
They would do the construction, but they would do, if the park district, and let's face it, in all likelihood, we would have to go to the community for a referendum for the funding to build whatever parts or all of the recommended plan. And they could do the design. The park district will have to make that decision at that time down the road if we want to hire them to do the final design, or we want to use another consultant. If we go through this process and AECOM doesn't turn out to be the firm we thought they were, we may want to go to Baird.
But I'm just wondering if they do become the type of firm we want to do business with. In other lines of business, it would be customary for a portion of the upfront consulting stuff to be applied to the larger projects. Is there a way to negotiate that with them? I know there's a lot of time involved in the 66 grand, but
I don't think that's realistic because, I think there's going to be, at best, a full-year gap between when a final design could be authorized and this study could be completed, if not two. I mean, it takes, it's a 4-month process just to get a referendum.
I agree with Brock, though. I mean, why not?
It's a great
Why not
idea.
ask? So it's 2 years down the road. If we use you 2 years down the road, X dollars get applied to.
In my experience for this type of work, that's not, in my opinion, that will not fly.
No, doesn't work out
But
where we started, so I'd ask
from
them.
our standpoint, it won't keep us. This
And I don't think we
break.
Well, it doesn't hurt.
I don't think we want to guarantee.
ask.
It
doesn't hurt to ask.
I don't think we want to. I don't think we want to put ourselves in the position of having to use a consultant where we strike a deal where you do the work for 40 instead of 66.
No.
I'm not saying that.
What he's saying,
We're
we're
going to pay 20 later on.
No, we're gonna pay the whole amount. No. But if we end up hiring them, we would like a credit back for part of the fee. That's all we're asking for.
Against a larger project?
They're gonna get their fee
Oh.
now. So it's a question to them that they get to say yes or no to right now.
Yeah, we can ask them.
Yeah.
I think that's.
It doesn't hurt.
So yeah, I agree. That's a good suggestion.
So what they would, just to answer your question, Chris, is they would be the engineering firm that would provide all the design. We would bid out the actual construction work, and they wouldn't take that on. So it would be a firm that works with potential barges, trucking companies, things like that, that handle armor stone or that, but they would be the engineering
Yeah,
firm.
but they
So
could-
there still could be a healthy fee for them down the road.
There's still, absolutely, yes.
But they would still potentially play a role as in construction management, representing the park district, whatever contractors.
I think it's a very fair question to ask for the
Yes.
types of dollars involved and the potential types of dollars down the road.
Correct.
Yeah.
That would be what now is the reclamation district. I know that that's been going on a long time, and I know you just said it's been 1.5 years since you talked to them. I think it's worth a call, because there was talk of them sharing some of our costs down there. This may not be appropriate costs for them to be sharing in, but it's just worth a phone call.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if Tom Swarthout is still the person in charge there now, but
Brian Dorn is.
he was very involved in the Lake Forest beach and Forest Park, so I mean, I think he'd be all ears to talk about something like this.
Absolutely.
And just a point to keep in mind, Ron, in case you forgot that the $66,800 number, if we were able to authorize this work tonight, they have a project somewhere further down the North Shore to the south, where this initial surveying work with the boat and all the equipment that they haul out in this boat to take the measurements for lake depth. They're actually going to be doing that work this week. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but they described it as somewhere relatively close to Lake Bluff, where they could then just take their boat up here to do the work. And they offered us a $2,000 credit. So if we can't authorize them to go ahead, it would be 68.8 instead of 60. I'm just throwing it out there. It's because there is a cost involved in getting a boat set up and getting it in the water. They don't have to come to this area 2 times from wherever all this equipment is coming from. They represented that was a $2,000 savings.
Okay. I'm good.
Well, it sounds like we got we'd like to make a motion on, to approve,
Can I make one comment? I promise it'll be short.
yes.
It's sort of, it's going to make what your recommendation was, I think, unless we're able to clarify, a little impossible to do. If we're committing to the 66 tonight, what are they going to say? They're not going to negotiate. We've already, let's say we're going to make a decision on the 66 grand. Well, so then we go, oh, by the way, would you guys be willing to do anything? Well, no.
But we're talking for future with the contract. So you would be authorizing me to negotiate a contract.
That includes that
That
provision.
includes that sort of language.
Oh, okay.
So if you direct me, I mean, very clear that.
He's going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, he's going to ask.
I'm saying, how do we do that?
Yeah, and I'm
That makes
sure
sense.
like all of our goal is not to let this study go to waste. I mean, we don't want to sit there and pay $67,000 and not use it. So it's going to push us to move forward and say, okay, maybe we can only do step 1 or do 2 groins. Maybe we do 2 groins this year and we wait and do the next 2, but we can at least start. This will give us a starting point. We will not regret this. Otherwise, our children's children will not be at this beach. They will be looking at it from the bluff. So thank you.
So I'll report back to the board on my Friday report about what they say, as well as talking with Brian Dorn from North Shore Reclamation District as well.
Alrighty.
Okay, so you make a motion, somebody?
Yeah.
You got it, Brock?
And usually with the motion, we do ask for just, if all of a sudden we need more community meetings or something like that, because it's a big topic. So we usually, with all our projects, do a 10% contingency. He does not anticipate that whatsoever. It's just something we do that's been customary over the years. It's up to the board. But we've never really had to use our contingency. contingency when it comes to that. But the board chooses to hold more community meetings or that beyond what they supply.
Well, I don't have an actual recommendation here, except I guess, should we, can I get a motion, let me put it this way, and help me kind of frame this up as I put it together. A motion to allow
Authorize the executive director.
the executive director, Ron Selsky, to
With attorney approval.
engage in, not negotiate, but to,
With attorney approval. So motion to authorize the executive director with attorney approval to enter an agreement with AECom not to exceed $68,800 plus a 10% contingency.
couldn't be better said.
So,
Second.
Roll call, please.
We know the 66 will
Yeah.
occur if we
Correct.
commit to this.
Yes.
Do we send them we scan something that,
He said that he would hold that the board approved tonight that if
Okay.
I called him in
then
the
it would
morning,
be 66?
it would be 66.
Okay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
yes.
Commissioner Mossberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace,
Yes.
President Douglas.
Yes. Thank you, George.
George, thank you.
Thank you, George.
Nice work, George.
Anytime.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item, and that's the golf club fee structure.
So at our committee meeting, and I see a lot of familiar faces from that meeting, thanks for coming again tonight. Billy Casper gave a presentation on fees, and their recommendation was to hold fees constant with the increases that they had already planned for in certain rack rates. And I think golf carts were in there too, there was a slight increase. We discussed the merits of adjusting those. I think the feeling in at the committee and certainly the recommendation of Billy Casper was that nominal increases there in those rates really were not moving the needle very much in terms of the operating performance of the golf course, and that there were some other things that we could be doing with the help of the association that might move that needle quite a bit farther, and that there's potential negative impact if we were to increase those rates too far that might drive certainly some of the internet-based folks away from the golf course. So we didn't reach consensus, but I think the feeling of our group was to leave them constant and follow the recommendation of Billy Casper. But Franz, Nikki, and I all felt that it was a big enough issue that we should at least bring it to the board, see if any of you had a strong opinion one way or another. Personally, I'm fine with the recommendation, and I agree with them that I don't think it's going to move the needle much if we were to increase, and that there's probably more downside risk than upside gain in moving those at all from here. But again, we wanted to give you all a chance to chime in if you care to.
I was always a little leery about until Bob sort of, gave me a good explanation of maybe what the increases could be, but I always thought that it was like throwing a cup of coffee in Lake Michigan. It wouldn't do much to raise the water. Not that we wanted to. But so I'm sort of understanding maybe from their expertise that it might not have the effect. What might we lose, from the internet players and whatnot, that it's quite a bit of a risk and maybe not a lot of gain. But that's my only comment. You throw this out the board.
And I had been open to, during the last open meeting, to discussing it with do we lose rounds and whatever, and that could cut both ways. But I think with the only data point we have this year right now is that membership sales are down 12% versus last year. And with all the energy in golf that's been in the community, and to be down 12%, I don't think a price increase is the right thing to do right now. So, because we're down at the current price. So we raise it, then what are we open to?
What did Billy Casper say? One of the more interesting comments I thought from those open meetings was that man that stood up and he said, listen, you guys, one of the things that's changed in golf is you guys need to get rid of that year pass because that's draining you because you're paying such a tiny little amount because they're golfing so much. That's what's hurting you. Did you bring that up to Billy Casper?
Well, we talked about memberships, and that was one of the points that they came back to us with and said the recommendation is to continue offering the memberships. It drives revenue of about $150,000 a year, just something that we didn't feel in our current position that we could afford to just eliminate those. We weren't sure that we were going to capture all of that business back.
And that, Corey, that really is more of a situation where a golf course is at capacity. When you're full all the time, then that would be a strategy, but we are not close to full all the time, so those really are incremental revenues. Otherwise, the people who pay those, I don't know, what is $1,100 or whatever, at average of 30 rounds, would have to play 40 rounds a year and come here all 40 times, so.
Okay, so it doesn't really apply?
It doesn't really apply to us at well under capacity. If we could
If
sell
we
every
were
tee
full,
time
right, if we
and
were
get a rack
full
rate,
and
then we wouldn't want to sell discounted
Right.
rounds.
But we're not there.
But since we're not full, we need whatever rounds we can get, and that includes the membership rounds. So,
All right, and then my second question is, does Billy Casper realize the community and a lot of us think that the marketing has really been lame in the town of Lake Bluff?
Yeah, the only thing I would say, we're on a topic about fees, so we get off.
All right, I know, I wasn't at that meeting, so I was wondering if you guys touched it on this stuff.
So let me come back to that when we get to our committee kind of feedback.
Okay.
And again, a number of folks that are here were at the meeting and heard a lot of these same comments. So let me share some of that when we get to the committee reports.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's a good question.
so I am, for me personally, I am good with the recommendation to leave as is.
Okay. Everyone else fine?
Me too.
I trust.
Yep.
I trust you guys. I trust Bob. You trusted me on the parks. I trust you.
So do you want to make a motion just so it's not going back?
So I'll make a motion to make no further adjustments to the fee structure, really the rack fee structure and cart fees for the golf course for 2018.
Or membership fees.
Or membership fees,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
From 2017 rates.
From budget.
From what we've already.
Oh, I see.
From 2018 budget rates.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Budget rates.
Okay. Second.
I got it, yeah.
You have a second, did you?
Second.
No, he seconded.
So, roll call please.
Commissioner Earhart?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace?
Yes.
President Douglas?
Yes. Okay, moving on, item C, Lake Bluff Open Lands Association memorandum of understanding and approval.
So for the last few years, we've got before my time, a great relationship with Lavola. And in 2015, we created an agreement that contributed to Lavola's efforts. They do a lot over at Belfort Ray, the wetlands, and so it's just been getting stronger every year. So we're just looking at Eric Cotter, and he agrees we don't need to change anything to the agreement, send anything to the attorneys, and just continue as usual for another 3 years.
Do they bring projects to your attention or sometimes?
They do. They're much better, since we've had this, Brock's question is, do they bring the projects to attention over the years because of the relationship? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They'll call me ahead of time and say, hey, Ron, can you help us with this, or is there something you can do, or whatever the case is. So, absolutely. So it's enhanced by having this memorandum.
Okay.
Well, they're great team players. I've been impressed with the work they've done.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry.
Yes.
Commissioner Osbarger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace.
Yes.
President Douglas.
Yes. Next item, policy manual updates.
Since we did something different this year, we didn't give you every single policy manual, and your binder very large. But so what we did is try to narrow down what we needed to change in titles, and we had some older titles in there. So what we're just asking is part of our accreditation, as far as the right thing to do, is we communicate to all our employees, all our policies, to make the changes that are listed in the memorandum.
Any questions on all these adjustments?
No.
Everybody have the same title?
No, there's some titles that we changed, but it's still position titles. So some were outdated, some we changed recently.
But it seems like we have superintendent of finance and human resources, superintendent of finance and human resources,
Yeah, so,
superintendent of finance and human
yes,
resources.
so they're different policies. They're different policies.
Okay.
So there's either the risk management policy, the safety policy manual, the administrative policy manual, so they're all different policies. So we just tried to put it all in one instead of giving you each manual and showing you all the changes.
Thanks for clarification.
Any other questions? Got a motion to move to amend and approve all items presented in the
So moved.
Second?
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mossbarger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace.
Yes.
President Douglas.
Yes. Item 7, written communications. We got community comments and correspondences.
Yes, you have a letter from Bob Troyer. Bob's been a long-standing resident, so I want to make sure he's very thoughtful in his responses. So I want to make sure you get that and keep you up to date on all the articles. Instead of sending them every time we get it, try to put it in one document. So let's have it on file.
Okay, well, thank you for doing that. And of course, yeah, the shrinking beach at Wilmette is in there too. And the correspondence section, which Corey referenced earlier. So I guess we can move on then to verbal communications.
And the only thing I'm going to bring up first is I'll be coming to the Finance Administration and Future Planning Committee meeting regarding some good news about NSSRA. Currently, I'm chairman on the board of our Special Recreation Association, and we're working on a partnership with the Northbrook Park District, where Northbrook Park District is building an activity center, and the headquarters or the administrative offices would move over to this activity center, as well as their foundations raising for a gym to help out their participants with special needs. And so one of the things that we'll need to do is we're going to be working on as an accessory board an intergovernmental agreement for the facility, as well as an agreement, a finance plan agreement. And so basically this building will cost X amount. Currently we do contribute to a capital of NSSRA. So we'll be getting some numbers on what those potential dollars are. Northbrook hired an architect. NSSRA is splitting some of those costs. And the key thing is how much can the foundation for NSSRA raise. They retained a firm, the Elford Group, to take a look at how much they can raise. And it's pretty significant what they're willing to commit to. So the reason why I'm bringing it up is all 13 partners have to approve the finance plan and the intergovernmental agreement. And it's moving at a fast pace. The because of timing of construction. I don't have all the details, but we're making aware all our boards. I'll be making a presentation, maybe a committee of the whole of some sort, and it's a pretty extensive project for NSSRA and people with disabilities. So I just wanted to make you aware and not be surprised by any means if I'm coming to you. Something I talked about, I think, before you were here, Commissioner Mossbarger, but it was in its development stages. And so it's a significant project. Right now, NSSRA administrative offices are in an office park in Northbrook, so it's really hard for participants to go over there. It's just offices. This would be an opportunity where they can use a gym, meeting space, things like that. So I will tell you their foundation is raising millions for this. So what we're hoping is it's not a major impact on the agencies, basically the same amount of what we're giving today over a certain period of time. That's the ultimate goal on this. So, but wanted to make you aware of it because to get 13 partners, municipalities and park districts to approve this is going to be a significant feat.
Do you know what timing is, or?
Yeah, so we're working on that. I have a big meeting tomorrow about it, and it's probably going to be this fall.
Okay. Okay.
So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I have in my report. Staff?
Sure. The only things that I would like to add to my board report would be just an update for the 4th of July band that we're doing down at the beach. I do want to thank the Lake Bluff 4th of July committee. They committed a whole $3,000 to cover the band costs. So that was pretty significant. So anything that's raised that day that'll just be money to the foundation. So there won't be no other costs that we should occur throughout that night. We did receive $1,000 from Canals Automotive Group. They are sponsoring also the 4th of July band. So right now we've raised $1,000 for the foundation, and we have possibly one food vendor that also is going to be there for that event. And then this weekend we
is that actually on the 4th?
That's on the 4th.
It's actually on the 4th. Okay.
Do you know
what time the band is on?
Just gonna say 6 to 8.
6 to 8. Okay.
6 to 8. We'll be selling some like clothes items to the kids, and we are hoping to have these food vendors lined up, along with some other sponsors, and then the foundation will have some people there to help raise some additional funds. So the money that we take in that day from non-residents will go to the park district, just like it always has, so we won't lose any revenue there. But we'll be asking for donations for those individuals that want to come down and see the band. There's no cost for residents. We're just asking for them a donation.
Do we get a proceeds from the food we sell?
That's what we're working out for the food with the food vendor.
All right, but please get a lot more variety. Okay, food trucks and stuff.
We'll work on it.
All right.
You definitely will fit.
And then this weekend we have our big fundraiser for our preschool, our fun fair. This will be our 3rd annual fun fair. We did all expenses already covered. Lake Forest Dentistry is pediatrics and dentistry is donated $2,500. So they're going to cover all the expenses and costs of running that event. Everything that the preschool takes in that day on Saturday is just for donations to help supply the school with additional equipment and furnishings. So we're really excited. We're hoping to raise about another $2,500 to $3,000 on Saturday. So come and visit if you got little kids. We'll have fun games and things that will entertain them, and we're selling food, and it should be a fun time. That's any questions? That's all I have.
Okay. I mentioned in my written report, that we were doing some roof repair at the clubhouse and at the golf maintenance building, and also here at the rec center. We've had those guys out last week, and while they were on the clubhouse, they started opening up the roof and finding more and more problems, and we need to have them back another couple days and put about $3,000 additional into the clubhouse. And while they were on the roof of my maintenance building, that also needs some more attention. They found some more spots up there that also need repair. So we're looking at an additional $4,800 in roof repairs for the golf course buildings. Second thing I had, we've got a small caps line item that has multiple, I think about 13 projects in it that are all between $3,000 and $10,000. And these projects go from the beach to painting to all over the place. And Ron wanted me to give you an update on that. We are right on budget. We're just a little bit over. We had budgeted $56,000 in that line item. And right now we probably got about half of the projects done. And I've projected the cost of finishing. And we're about $2,000 over budget right now. So that puts us at $58,000 projected. There's a few projects in there that we may not do this year and pull back so that we can hit our budget and not be in an overage situation.
Okay, that's ballpark.
Any questions?
So of those projects, of the potential, not the potential, these roof repairs, would that hit that line item as well?
No, the
That
roof
would fall
repairs are
small cap.
in facilities repairs, line items. So some of them would go to the golf course, some of them would go to the rec center. You know, where the repairs were made, we'd put those expenses to those areas.
We have a line item for repairs, and it just can fluctuate every year.
Yeah.
How much to put in that, so maybe an average or an annual. But it was not budgeted, those were repairs.
I know it's an unfair day to ask, but how is the course looking in its recovery from last year and kind of getting ready for what we hope will be a spring season here soon?
Not including the last few days of rain and snow.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, the weather has been real cold, not good for golfers, but for maintenance, it's been dry. So I've been able to get staff back and get them out on the golf course and working, and I think the golf course came through winter real well.
Great.
And we're caught up pretty well on maintenance. So I'm feeling good about the golf course and the maintenance that's going on there. And as well as in parks, I was able to get fully staffed. So right now, knock on wood, we're fully staffed going into spring, which we haven't been able to do in quite a few years. And likewise out there, it's been dry, which is good for us and working. You know, the baseball fields, we've done a lot of work on them, and I'm feeling good at where we're at there. The beach, previous to the storm, we had the beach cleaned and had some small events out there. I think they had a church service on the South Shelter a few weeks ago, and that went well.
Chris, we've had some questions. One, we have our team back from the golf course to answer your question, which is good because they know this course inside out. Is what are the conditions? Are we planning to still maintain at the same level through August, September? And for the record and for the camera, absolutely. And the board knows this, but anyone who's looking at their passes, I remember talking with someone maybe a few weeks ago, and I said, all the way through. I mean, our goal is to keep this going and keep the maintenance at the high level that Rob's always done it. So,
And that's in our budget, and that's what we budgeted.
and that's what we budgeted to do.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify
Agreed.
that because we had some questions on that recently. So.
Okay. Oh, and that golf practice group from Highland Park, is there any update on?
Yeah, so they signed the contract, so,
Great.
Good point, yeah, I didn't know if you were going to bring it up. But we signed on with a group out of Highland Park. They used to be over at the course in Highland Park that is closed. And so we'll be getting roughly about $15,000 automatic to us in terms of programming. We'll give them 4 stalls, a junior program, adult programming, so a really good group that's highly regarded.
Is there upside from there?
Not at this time. It's so new, the relationship's so new, so they can only put so much out there in terms of, we had a couple different ways to work the contract. So typically they work the contract where it's either a straight fee or a revenue sharing, and we thought this was a better opportunity for us to do this.
Okay.
But
that's great though.
We're going to send out a press release for this. Actually, it came about, my daughter, as I've stated, takes a lot of lessons and plays competitive golf, and I happen to be talking to her pro. And I just said, hey, we're in this situation, and he said, I actually have a person for you, and let me hook you up. And so I happened to call, and it was perfect because they were looking for a home, and they think we're the perfect home for them. So they have
wait, so is it for Lake Bluff kids too?
No, it's for Lake Bluff kids, but they're
Okay.
able to bring in civilian kids and advertise for our Lake Bluff kids as well.
That's great.
It's a win-win.
So it is.
And they'll market themselves, I assume, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Great, that's great.
Basically, they just pay us to have use of the 4 stalls.
Well, plus we get new people introduced to the golf course, and we
Correct.
get new people.
They'll be bringing people out to the range, we
Right.
just pay range dollars.
That's great,
I
fantastic.
like that. That's like more fun for our kids to meet new kids from
Yeah,
other areas.
absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely there'll be a push. It's just, they usually start the first week in April, but with the weather there. But we just signed a contract Friday.
Okay.
So thanks, Chris, for the reminder. I know Cheryl has a quick update.
I just, I included in my board report, I just wanted to share that we went live, bringing payroll in-house to process. So we previously were outsourcing our payroll for the past 6 weeks. It's been a feat to incorporate and be able to process payroll in-house without the technicalities involved, so.
Great.
I will tell you, since Cheryl's been here the last 2 months, she's been all in payroll right now, so I apologize with the purchase cards. That was me, I was supposed to handle that. That's, the focus has been just getting this payroll system up to date, and you know there's a lot of people relying on their paychecks, so this was a great thing with the bank, but they're still in training. So once we're done with
Not
this,
an easy task. I've
Cheryl,
done that a few times.
Cheryl will get caught up into the finances, but we'll be able to start answering, getting answers to a lot of
Bless
questions.
you.
Great.
So anyway, she's been very involved in payroll, so it's good timing for us.
I have not been upstairs, but new fitness equipment.
Yeah, we're still missing a few
delivered,
pieces.
installed,
Yes.
well received.
Well, Tim's been getting, he's gonna be putting a report together for me, so we're still missing, we're supposed to get some in later this week. And then we have a promotional schedule. Yeah, promotional schedule, and so I've talked with Franz on a couple things, so we're gonna start blasting things a lot more. So I have a big meeting on Friday to meet with the team on more promotions.
And then the last thing I saw in this report, all the stuff on racket sports, the paddle numbers are way off from where they were last year and previous years in terms of I think it's the first quarter. But there's no explanation as to why that might be. Do you know offhand, or can you get us that answer?
I'll get you an update instead of.
There's a lot of timing in that, but it's a good question.
But it's way, we've got 4-year history, and it's about half of where we were in 16, yet, obviously they just built the court.
I know we had 11 teams this year, so yeah, I'm sure I don't know the explanation. either,
Yeah,
so.
I'll get you, just not prepared for that, but I'll get you by Friday. So.
Well, 2016, we recognized that it was not deferred accounting at that point. We weren't doing deferred revenue in 2016.
We're
down in
we're down another 40 or 45% from last year.
Yeah.
What page are you on?
Page 107. I went backwards.
I'm on 250.
Yeah, I was there too.
Okay.
But the racket stuff
Don't go
reminded me of that. And Corey said I could go backwards.
Okay.
It's a good catch.
It's not football, right?
Any committee reports at all? Any updates at all?
Yeah, so to provide a little more color maybe, Billy Casper came in, and I still see some folks here, which is great. They were able to hear directly from Billy Casper. They provided their 2018 marketing plan. Community members were able to ask a lot of questions and I think get a better understanding and feel for what the firm's all about and what their approach is, which I thought was a great opportunity for everybody. It's not that dissimilar, their plan from 2017. I think there are they have a lot of good ideas. The public has a lot of good ideas. One thing that I really wanted them to focus on was execution. And we heard that, I don't know the gentleman's name in the back, but you used that term as well in the meeting. Execution is critical, and that's where they've really been lacking. And really been lacking in terms of their focus on the Lake Bluff community versus their focus on getting players in from other communities. So we talked about how we all have a lot of really good ideas, but if we can't figure out the execution piece, it doesn't matter. One of the big execution items that we focused on was email and their lack of ability to market themselves to the local community. I told them again in that meeting, and Ron and I have talked about it since, that I am still not getting their emails. It drives me crazy.
Really? I'm getting twice as many now.
Ron, has an update that he provided me a letter here. There's some, I am not personally blacklisted, but there's some, is that the term you use, Ron?
Some of the IP addresses, yes. So what?
They've identified the issue. They are in process of fixing the issue. I don't know how long that fix is going to take. Do you, Ron?
So I just received this today. So we met
Okay.
with them on Friday. So I told them I received it right before I came in here. So I didn't get a chance to fully review it. I had a meeting with Commissioner Wallace and Commissioner Douglas. But they put together, I told them by the end of this week, I wanted some updates on where we're at with some of those emails. They assured me they didn't get to, I would anticipate the next 2 weeks they'd be able to solve this. So, so we're moving as fast as we can with them, and I was in conversations with corporate with them, and so I have to have an opportunity to look this over and kind of comment.
So
but they
we're on
it
it.
was on their highest priority.
Yeah, I mean, that has to be fixed. That has to be fixed soon. After our committee meeting, and that was a couple-hour meeting, Ron and Rob and Franz, the three of you, then met with the association group that afternoon, and I don't know, I was not part of that meeting, but I think it was a good, healthy discussion, and some good ideas came out of that. So there's good energy. There's a lot of, for us to focus on. Again, I've been really focused on the execution piece and getting that fixed. And then look forward to working on some of the really good stuff, which are the ideas to stimulate more play and more activity in the community, and work with all these folks on some of the good programming opportunities and ideas that they have. So we're getting there.
That's good.
Do we know, regarding membership, the decreased membership this time compared with last year, who didn't renew a membership? I think that's a little,
There's still, that's why
can you try to find out loud?
Dominic talked about that a little bit, but he's been working on that, and permanent tee timers haven't been able to. Weren't able to play this past weekend. That's a lot of times where they do sign up. So he does know that there's some snowbirds, there's those permanent tee timers. So that's what he said. As soon as the weather breaks, they'll start getting in. I think this is a big, play some golf this weekend. It'll be interesting to see how many he's captured this weekend.
Yeah.
So,
And we are supposed to have some decent weather to read projections and forecasts.
yeah, and that's where that's why I wanted to make the statement. Some people still wondering what are we going to look like at the end of the year with our maintenance, and I want to reassure people again that business as usual. Status quo.
Yeah, and, excuse me, this came up in the committee meeting, and I think I made the comment that I was surprised, and Bob and I have talked about this, that the numbers are behind where they were last year, because we both would have thought that with all the enthusiasm and energy behind golf, that maybe we would have been a little bit ahead of last year.
Yeah, I would have thought so too.
Someone in the group made a very good comment and said, yeah, but there's so much uncertainty. Maybe folks are just deferring their membership applications or deferring the dollars they're spending on the course until some of this gets straightened out. So I thought that was a very good comment, and I don't know, maybe it falls somewhere.
No, but this is true. Remember this happened with the pool. The rumors went around that we might close the pool, and then all of a sudden, no one was buying beach passes. Our numbers went way down.
Yeah.
And then we started saying, we need to market, get something out, get signs up, have you registered for the beach? So, I mean beach, sorry, beach is on my pool. And then they came back up.
Yeah, they stayed the same. Passes when the top pool closed, our passes were down.
But how about when we got the top pool?
Oh, when we got the top pool, absolutely, absolutely. That's what you're saying.
All right. Well,
The course is open.
Of course,
the course is open. How do we let everyone know?
We have to be reassured that, this calendar year, nothing has changed.
Test their marketing. Send it out and tell people the course is going to be in tip-top shape. Just say it. Come out and play.
Well,
You have to
Ron,
come
we
out and
talked
play.
about,
Nobody said, by the way, we're going to be there for you.
yeah, we talked about if they couldn't get their email system figured out, that we may have to bring that in-house for a little bit. So maybe that's something that we need to send out now while they correct.
Yeah.
Because one thing, remember that we talked about this in the meeting too, they have a good list of folks that have played the golf course. They don't necessarily have a good list of other community members that may be thinking about playing, or if there was some event that attracted them there where golf was kind of secondary to the fun element of the event, they might be interested in trying it out. So I think we should go ahead and send something.
We'll get something out.
I think so too. I have yet to receive something from the golf. I'm like you, I've never received anything. So
But you don't
It's the first time I've ever heard you say that.
I don't play golf, but if I was invited to one of those fun little martini evening golf events, I might think about it. I need to be invited.
You're invited.
Thank you. Then I'm gonna come.
I don't know when it is, but you're invited.
Thank you.
Let's try to keep moving here a little bit.
All right.
Do we have any tri-board things coming up?
No, we
It's been pretty quiet on that front. Okay. We haven't done that in a while, I don't think, so. Well, we heard from friends of the parks today, which was great. Any other kind of commissioner comments on anything? And I guess I should mention with the Wednesday afternoon meeting, Franz is here today, but I was there with her and with Ed and Ron. And yeah, we're figuring out how to do this dance, I think, to a little bit of a degree. But I think one thing we made clear, and I think the board established a consensus on the March 19th meeting, that we had 4 primary objectives that we were setting out on doing. First with the zoning change, which will be benefiting the Park District in general, just to eliminate any of that, language that is out there on the zoning maps that will go away and will become recreational institutional space. We addressed that one item we said at the 19th meeting about should we look at the fee structure again, any additional increases over what we budgeted back in December, and we came to agreement that we're going to not modify that at all. The big issue of looking for a long-term lease, the RFP process is underway as far as being constructed, and we're hoping it'll be going out on the 30th of the month.
Yeah, so thank you for the reminder. So we'll be sending out a notice across the country regarding our lease, RFP for lease. So that will be a notice. I want to get that out tomorrow. And then it's with, the actual lease is with the attorney, it has to go through the bond attorney. So we'll get it done right before the date, which will be, the official release date will be April 30th. So, and we'll go until June 13th. And we do have a mandatory meeting built into that.
And you have a list that
I've been working on a list, but I'm going to need help. We asked the
Bob's
group,
got some names. Oh, good.
as well
So
as
you
the
asked
group.
the group too.
We did. That's why I'll send it over to them.
Okay.
So I'll send a notice over to them tomorrow, so they can get that out. So at least they have 2 weeks before they receive the RFP to start looking at things. If they wanted to come by or whatever the case is, they have that ability.
Okay.
So
Are there associations that versus just singularly that we don't?
So USGA, there's going to be a lot of, it's all in here.
I think so much.
Yeah, good question. No, good question.
Well, and also this whole RFP, I mean, it's, we want to keep the golf course. The question is, can the park district still run it? And I think this is what this RFP will do, is it'll help identify alternative entities to run the golf course. We want to keep the golf, we just, as an organization, are having difficulty doing it and making it work. Also, one other component that came up, just to remind everybody, was a fundraising component. And that's something that we're still talking to the committee about, golf committee, about how to identify a timeline and goal on that. And that's still in the evolving process here right now. But I'm certainly encouraged about getting this RFP out. I think this is really going to be a big piece to the puzzle. And if we can get some traction on that, I think we've got possibly a win-win for everybody. But we've got to get the process started, and it's well underway. And certainly by the mid-June period, we should have a good idea of what that option's looking like, and if it's got traction.
There was an action from, I think, the March meeting as well, to let the community know what was needed in order to keep it open. I remember someone saying that, we want to look at whether the fee should be increased, but also what is the monetary number that makes the golf club viable. I haven't heard anything further on that.
Well, we're running deficits right now, and we've got to close that gap. The burn rate is hurting. So
I might have been the one that made that comment, and I do believe that we need to identify for the public what the number is and by what time. So we just need to work, as a group and figure out, what that is.
Right.
We know operationally, we know expense. It's just what does the board want to agree to?
That's
well,
correct.
One of our last, not that I'm here to share anything until we are.
Well, I don't think we're in a position to put a number out at this point. So.
No, I understand. But this is something that one of our last couple finance administration, that we did discuss, and it's fair question, and to try to come up with maybe, just that recommendation that we bring to the board for, maybe we need to put that on, quicker, sooner than later. I don't know if it would be an agenda item, but it is a great question, and we have discussed it, we've started doing a little work on that, but we're not.
Yeah, I mean, you can put it on our committee agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either yours or ours or both if you want us talking about it too.
Either way.
But
So I'll just take from the presentation, we're short on both sides. So I guess, are you looking for a recommendation from operations and capital? Because
No, I think the point is, I think the committees need to get together and discuss it and come up with a proposed number that we think is a reasonable number to do.
And I think at this point where we are, that our committee really needs to be meeting every month, not every other month or whatever our standard is. So, you know, certainly set up a meeting for us end of this month, early May, and that should be an agenda topic, along with an update on this email stuff to make sure that that's all taken care of. And then separately, you guys, you know, can meet as well as a finance committee.
It's going to be needed to review the RFP responses. If somebody comes back and says, yeah, we'll take the lease, but we need a 1 million capital injection, that's, you know, no idea what the answer is, but it's kind of going to be needed to understand whether the RFP is viable, the responses are viable or not.
Well, by doing this ahead of time,
So
we'll be better prepared.
I guess my only suggestion for the board to kind of come together, I'm going to be meeting with different committees, and here is to call a committee of the whole meeting together.
That's what I was
That's instead of separate meetings and trying to come up.
First week of May window is typically when we have a committee as a whole.
May 7th.
Or at least it's scheduled, we don't have them all the time, because we do a lot of work at committee level, but considering the magnitude of this, maybe that should be
We can still go to the committees ahead of time, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, why don't we have these?
Yeah, we still have
Suggestion would be to have discussions at the committee level and see if we can get some of the work done there, and then
Bring it to the committee.
bring it to the
That's fine.
committee of the whole meeting,
Right,
and
yeah.
then have a discussion with the
Okay.
group.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that
with
okay?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds.
That'd be helpful for me.
Well, and frankly, anything that we can get on the fundraising side would enhance the RFP process. Because if there is some help on that side of the equation, then that will enhance our ability to potentially do an RFP.
But it's really hard to fundraise when you could have a meeting in May and decide to close the course.
Pardon?
It's really hard to raise funds when you could, in May, decide to close the course.
Wow, we're not closing the course this year.
No, but
next year.
But people aren't going to want to put in significant amounts of capital if there may be no course in October.
What's your time frame? What's your minimum time frame?
We do pay for a refurb.
Let's put it on the
house
May
that
committee,
might be knocked down
put it on the
in
committee of the
November.
whole.
Yeah, let's, committee as a whole.
Okay.
That date,
Is that first?
May 7th.
May 7th? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So the 7th and the 21st, right? For 21st is a full board meeting.
All right, so the 7th, fine.
So that will be, you know, being a committee of the whole, it'll be discussion based, no actions being taken, but consensus can be brought together, so, okay. Good. I think that does it for me. Any other comments on verbal communications? Will someone then take us into executive session? Someone like to lead that?
Brock's usually really good.
Brock's good.
Go for it, Brock.
I move to go into executive session for the discussion of the meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for purposes of approval by the district of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by section 2.06 per 5 ILCS 120/2 C21.
You ready for a second on that?
And then, well, then I have to read the.
Oh, you got more?
Also, for the purpose of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of an employee pursuant to section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Earhart.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace.
Yes.
President Douglas.
Yes. Yeah, now that we're,
We have to approve
Make a
the
motion.
decision that we
Yeah, we
made.
have to make-
executive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, a motion needs to be made, now that we're back in regular session. Not sure how to say this.
Specific.
Don't get
Not
specific.
Yeah.
To approve.
Approve the.
The compensation items discussed.
Discussed
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
executive
okay,
session.
motion to approve the compensation items as discussed.
In the executive session.
In the
So
executive
moved.
session.
Second.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
So Corey was the, so moved, and Bob second.
We need a roll call for
Yeah,
that.
that will be a roll call, yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Earhart.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mossberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wallace.
Yes.
President Douglas.
Yes.
Do you want these back?
Now I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no nays?
I can take them back and destroy them. I'm just gonna get rid of, except for the one copy for.
You always.
Oh,
You're gonna wanna keep it, Rob, because you're gonna have to have the discussion
Marsh,
with
is that
Ron.
off?
Yep.
No.